Welcome to a special edition of the Matchbook Betting Podcast. This is the boxing edition, and I'm Jesse May, pleased to be joined by Matchbook's boxing expert, Ryan Cahill. We're going to be talking about the Jake Paul-Mike Tyson fight tonight, Ryan. But first, welcome. And, you've been involved in boxing most of your life. You've written a lot of content for Matchbook and are a pretty good judge, in my opinion.
Nice of you to say, Jesse. Yeah, I suppose I would have started out. I would have had a few amateur fights as a youngster, and I think what kind of first got me into boxing would have been Kenny Egan, who was an Irish Olympian, and he won the silver medal at the Olympics in Beijing in 2004. And yeah, I kind of just got the urge for it then, and
The boxing bug.
The boxing bug, yeah. And since then, I've just been, in the past 20 years, I've been watching fights almost every weekend, it seems like.
I've been a boxing fan my whole, honestly, so I grew up, not far from Mike Tyson, not the same neighborhood, but he was a part of my prime, my childhood I remember watching all those, first round knockouts and the big fights when I was, between 14 and 20 years old. And were you the same? In the sense that, have you watched, what is your experience with Mike Tyson? What do you know about him?
Yeah, it's very interesting. Very little experience to watching any Mike Tyson fights live. Now, the only one I can vaguely remember is he fought Kevin McBride, an Irish fella.
Yes.
He would have fought him in maybe 2004 or 2005, but McBride actually beat him, which would have been a big upset at the time. But obviously, as we know now, Tyson, towards the end of his career, was fairly washed. So that would have been the only live experience that I've ever seen Tyson. Obviously, I've watched countless clips of him through the years.
A lot of people over this side of the pond would obviously remember the Bruno fight was huge. And the Bruno fight was one of those fights. Now, obviously, Tyson was a massive favorite, but I feel like there was a big build-up to Bruno, and he just, he wrecked him. I can't remember if it was the third round or the fifth round, but he wrecked him. But I'm excited. Look, so let's look at the market. This is going to be an exciting fight Friday night, but I was talking to a colleague of mine, and I love Tyson. He's a mythical figure. And I was talking to him, and he didn't know anything about the odds. He said, surely Tyson must be a favorite here. And I was like, no way, it's not even close. So, for a lot of people, old timers like me, can you just kind of explain why the odds have been set the way they are with Jake Paul about 1-2 and Mike Tyson like 2-1?
Yeah, and Jake Paul is actually he's actually drifting as the days go on. Like when this line first opened a few weeks back, Jake Paul was like 1.27 to win this, and now he's hitting. You can nearly back him at 1.6 now with us. So it's a bit of a crazy drift. I suppose caveat it all, like Mike Tyson is 58 years of age ultimately.
Yeah.
So
what does that mean? You boxed. What does that mean in boxing terms? People are looking at the videos and stuff and saying, "Oh, this is good form."
You're someone who loves handicapping games now, in particular NFL and stuff like that, Jesse. When you handicap this at its basis, you have Jake Paul, who's a 27-year-old guy, but he lacks ability, but he's in phenomenal shape and he's desire to win. On the other hand, you have a guy who had all the ability in the world, all the talent in the world, but he's now 58 years of age, and ultimately it comes down to can his body do what his mind wants it to do anymore? And we'll get into that in a minute. I don't think it can, but we'll see.
Okay. And, in terms of the actual match itself, I know there's some special rules in place, 2-minute rounds. I think the gloves are a different weight. What does that mean?
Yeah, so it's going to be officially sanctioned bout. It's obviously in Texas Friday night. The rounds are going to be 2-minute rounds as opposed to 3-minute rounds for male fighters. It's going to be an 8-round fight, so 8 by 2-minute rounds, and opposed to the gloves being, they would normally be 10-ounce gloves. They're now on the fight on Friday night. It'll be 14-ounce gloves, so obviously a bit more padding. Shots mightn't be as.
So it's harder to hit a knockout blow with a 14-ounce glove.
Yeah, you have that. You've just that bit extra padding. 14-ounce gloves would have normally been considered sparring gloves. So you train in those gloves so as to not cause damage or cuts to an opponent. You know what I mean? You train in 14 or 16 ounce, and you'd fight in 10 or 12 ounce.
So you're a young guy. You're in reasonable shape. I'm guessing you're not in the gym sparring every week. What would 2-minute rounds, 8 2-minute rounds with 14-ounce gloves? What would that take out of you?
I'd say it would probably take a lot out of me these days.
So it is. I mean, it's a massive physical
It
undertaking.
is. Like I don't think people kind of quantify it enough of like the physical aspect that there is to boxing in terms of just pure, the stamina you need. Um, I mean, you're working almost all of your body, your arms, shoulders, hips, knees. Uh, I mean, most of your power comes from the lower half of your body. Um, so yeah, it is really physically taxing, and whether Mike Tyson can even do 2-minute rounds at his age, I'd have serious question marks over.
How much does skill come into play, and what is the skill gap here?
It's really hard to say. Like Mike Tyson, again, going back to it, he's 58 years of age. His speed is obviously going to be much deteriorated from the 80s and 90s. They do say the power is the last thing to go, which,
I
you
remember
know,
Foreman. I mean, I remember Foreman, and he was huge and old, and man, he could still hit.
yeah, like they do say power is the last thing to go. So I would say, I would caveat everything with, if Mike Tyson lands the perfect shot on Jake Paul is probably going to go to sleep. Whether he can still do that at this day and age, that would be the big question mark for me.
Okay, let's look at the market. Let's look at the main market first. As you mentioned, you can now bet Jake Paul at something like what, nearly 1.6. It's been drifting. This is the three-way market. Obviously, if you're just betting in the two-way market, the prices will be a little bit shorter. And then obviously the method of victory, and just that method of victory for a second, because this is pretty unusual, right? For Tyson, the difference between him winning by decision or a technical decision and KO is just massive here.
Mm.
Compared to what you would usually see.
Yeah, I suppose. I think the market is kind of suggesting there that if Tyson doesn't win this in the first round or two, then he's not going to win at all, which I would totally agree with. I would, unless there's judging shenanigans, which I think if there is any in this fight, it would actually be on the Paul side, given he is technically the promoter of the event.
And
I
that's what
would
people are worried about. And maybe one of the reasons that a lot of people, their big bets are leaning towards a two-way market, because they think, well, it'll be clear one way or the other, or there'll be some kind of something.
Like if you look at the draw price for a normal fight, if you went down the odds of a weekend and you looked at each bout, a draw price would generally be about 18, 20 to 1. And here you're looking at 11 to back, 11.5 to back, which is tremendously short. Especially, in a fight where you'd have big reservations of whether it could actually even reach the 16-minute mark.
Yeah, so that's a big factor. And look, you have to maybe take that into account when you're making your bets. If you're in a three-way market, you could lay one fighter instead of backing the other. So you grab that, or decide to take your chances. All right, tell me. Look, everyone who wants to bet Tyson, in their head they're thinking all he needs is just one punch. But what are you thinking? How would you attack this fight?
Yeah, well, I've already had a fairly decent bet in this. I've backed Jake Paul. I, in my opinion, I think this is verging on Mayweather and McGregor levels of
That's what it
value.
feels like. Yeah, that's what it feels like.
Yeah, I do. I really do. I think Jake Paul should probably be 1.2 max to win this.
And how
Like,
do you see his strategy? Like, what is he in his head? How does he, plan this fight? Keep Tyson away, avoid the big dangers, don't tie up with him. I don't know.
it's an interesting one because the only relevant footage we really have of Tyson over the last few years, I don't know if you've seen this, Jesse, but he did have an exhibition against Roy Jones Jr. About 2 or 3 years ago, I think, and it was pretty bad. I mean, from both sides, they did look their ages. Like Tyson was gassed. He was breathing heavy after a round or two. I'd expect it to look similar here. I do think if Jake Paul comes out and knocks out Tyson in the first minute or two, I think there'll be uproar as well. So I would expect Jake Paul to have to carry this a few rounds at least.
What is Jake Paul's style? Just quickly, I know Mike Tyson's style. He's got that uppercut. I mean, he kills you in his prime, in the body. What does Jake Paul do?
Very basic, very basic. Just kind of jab 1-2s. His backhand is obviously his best shot. He's not overly technical, which look, it's no great slide on him really. He's only been training boxing 6-7 years. These fellas who are fighting top level professional boxing have been, since they're 2, 3, 4 years of age these days. They've had the gloves laced up. So yeah, he's very basic in his fight style. I mean, if you're breaking it down to Mike Tyson's fight style, if you're thinking back to when he was in his heyday, he has that come forward, peekaboo kind of explosiveness from that left hand, that left hook. But yeah, I'm guessing that's not there these days. But in terms of purely Jake Paul, he is very basic, very rudimentary.
Okay, look, thanks for talking me off a cliff here because, left to my own devices, I could just get romantic and get stuck in on Tyson. And I think probably if you do get stuck in on Tyson, Ryan, you probably might just want to just pick an early round and go for a knockout and just hope something good happens.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, if you definitely want to be on the Tyson side of things, I'd probably just pick the first round, second round, maybe Dutch the two of them.
Okay, I'm not going to do that. I am going to bet smart. That's what I'm telling myself. And honestly, when you say, you put in the context of McGregor and Mayweather, and we know what that means. What that means is the public has pushed the right price so far that, the sharps are just going to be they can't even handle it. And, when you talk about 1.6 and you think it could be 1.2, that is value straight up that you just probably don't see in sports betting.
Yeah, well, the drift would obviously be alarming in other circumstances, but when I'm breaking this down, it's a most valuable promotion, which is Jake Paul's promotional company. It's in the state of Texas where a lot of his fights have been. If there is going to be any shenanigans, especially on judges' cards here, it will be for Jake Paul. If you're looking towards the future, there's a lot more money to be made out of Jake Paul currently than there is Mike Tyson. So I just can't quantify how this price is nearly 1.6 at all in my head. I just can't see any reason it should be this big.
Anyway, look, is this a fight you're looking forward to, or is it a circus match? Because honestly, I've seen the build-up. I can't wait. I just cannot wait.
The closer we're getting now, I am genuinely excited for it. But it is in that freak show type of way as well. Like I think, if betting aside in terms of this fight, I think everyone would love to see, a 58-year-old Mike Tyson teach Jake Paul a lesson. But I don't think we're going to get that. But it's going to be an intriguing watch.
Sure will be. Sure will be. And look, if you want to grab some value, you don't have to go crazy. But betting is about trying to make smart bets. And Jake Paul at 1.6 looks totally standout for Ryan's opinion, and I'm with him as a judge of judges. That'll be fun. Look, just quickly, Ryan, I know there's a bit of an undercard, and there is actually a pretty good match on it, isn't there?
Big fight, yeah. There's, especially for Irish boxing fans, Katie Taylor, who is one of Ireland's best ever sporting stars, probably the best boxer we've ever produced. She's fighting Amanda Serrano in a rematch. First time around they fought in New York. Katie Taylor edged a close decision. She was down halfway. It looked like Serrano was on top, but Katie Taylor managed to box back and won a close decision. Now, this time around, odds are effectively a pick-em, which is fair, but you have to quantify the fact that Katie Taylor won't have the support that she had on the East Coast of America last time when it was in New York. There was a massive Irish crowd. If you watched that fight, you saw the reaction to Taylor being announced the winner. It was like it was in Dublin.
Now that sums up the East Coast. New York is awesome.
Now it's in Texas. It's in Amanda Serrano country. The odds are essentially a pick-em, but I think it really feels like Serrano is going to get revenge for the last fight and set up a trilogy. I think Katie Taylor's last 12 fights have all gone the distance, so this fight will go the distance. And I do think it'll be a relatively close fight, but I think the judges are going to lean the way Serrano. So I think Serrano as well is also a most valuable promotions fighter under Jake Paul banner. She's fought on a number of Jake Paul cards. I think it's really set up for her to win. So I think if you want to get into the doubles, which you can do on a Matchbook betting exchange, a double of Serrano and Jake Paul makes a lot of sense to me.
Love that. I love that angle. A little bit of value in both. Unfortunately for Irish fans, you and romantic fans, you might have to, just swallow your pride. And look, maybe you don't stay up for it. Maybe you don't stay up to 5 a.m. I'm gonna anyway. But I love that. All right, listen, thanks so much, Ryan. This has got me totally pumped. Hope this helped out your betting, you watching your betting information, and hope we can do more boxing in the future. Thanks very much from the Matchbook Betting Podcast, Jesse May, and my thanks to Ryan Cahill. Good luck tomorrow night.